So we can learn from people when we take the time to just open up and listen to them. Even people that we might think are really different. So when I lived in New York City, I lived in Harlem. I lived up on 129th and St. Nicholas. And in that neighborhood on 116th and Adam Clayton Powell, there was the First Corinthian Baptist Church. Now when I lived in New York, I got really involved in couch surfing. Couchsurfing is this amazing worldwide organization where you can open up your home, or as a traveler, you can search for hosts, and you put a profile up, a lot more detailed than Facebook actually, and you talk about yourself and your interest, and it's a way not only to meet people as you travel, but even in a city where you live, especially a big city, a way to explore it in ways that you might not otherwise reach out and go do things that you might not otherwise do. Well, all across Europe, it became this big trend with couch surfers, mostly from Europe, who'd want to go to a Black Baptist church service. And so I ended up being I was like the tour guide to do this, and I actually joined this church because I loved the pastor, and I loved that at that church, they walk the walk. This was not only about attending on Sunday, this was about every day being respectful and kind to everyone in your circle, to everyone that you would encounter. And so I loved taking couch surfers to this church. Well, one Sunday it turned out that there was a group of 7 who wanted to go all in the same Sunday. I thought that was a little bit much, but I figured I didn't want to dampen their spirit, so I said, yeah, we're going to make this work. So in our group, we had an atheist, a Buddhist, an extreme conservative Christian from India. We had did I mention Hindu? We had Muslim, we had a Jewish person, and then we had Roman Catholic from Italy. Everyone joined together and we went to church that day. Now the church, it was real easy to see who the people in the neighborhood were and who the tourists were because there were 2 lines. Now this church had been one of the first movie houses in Harlem. I think it was the very first. So there was the downstairs and then there was the balcony. And the 2 lines going into the church, you could see the people in the neighborhood, they were dressed to the nines. The women with their hats, the men with their suits. And then you'd see the line of tourists, and if it was summer, they'd have on little tank tops and shorts, and you could hear the people who lived in the neighborhood, that is just not what you wear when you go to church. I don't know what these people are thinking. Well, we get into the church, and in the beginning, we were in the tourist line. But one of the parishioners remembered me, and she said, honey, now you one of us, you're our sister, you live in the neighborhood, now you come on in here, you're sitting downstairs with all of us. And so she pulled me and the group, and we walked in with everyone from the neighborhood. And we sat toward the back because there were 7 of us, so we took up quite a bit of space, well actually 8 including me. And then the preacher came out. And when he would start, before every sermon, he would say, if you're looking for the perfect church, this is not it. If you're looking for the perfect pastor, that is not me. But if you are looking for a place where we respect and love our brothers and sisters, and we hope you do the same when you leave these doors, you are in the right place. And the sermon that day happened to be about how sometimes people don't win in the parent lottery. And they were talking. He was speaking, and preach it, preach it, preach it, preach it. He was speaking about how, although yes, it's important to honor thy mother and thy father, when your father is a crack addict and hasn't taken care of you and has abandoned you, and your mother has neglected you, you don't always have to love. Well, you always love them, I'm sorry. You do always love your parents, but you don't always have to like them. And the sermon, I thought it was so powerful because he made it so real with everyday examples that we could really relate to and understand. So I came away from it thinking, that is so wonderful, because think about the pressure put on. And I thought about my own childhood and my dad and his issues with mental illness and being in and out of work and what that was like. And sometimes it was really hard to love him and like him. But that sermon gave me permission to be at peace with some of the feelings I'd had. So the sermon was ending, and oh, the offering, that's my other favorite part. The offering, this preacher would say, if you've got your envelope, hold it up in the air. If you've got nothing, I want you to put both hands up in the air, and may you be doubly blessed. Preach it, sir, preach it. Well, after the service was over, we gathered at my apartment to have a potluck meal and talk. So there we were, atheist, Buddhist, extreme conservative Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, Roman Catholic from Italy, and then me, kind of a mix of everything. And we sat down, we prepared food together, and then we had what turned into a 6-hour conversation about religion. And as we talked through that afternoon and through that evening, we learned none of these religions were that different. There were angels that had the same name. There were saints that the Muslims had that were the same as in the Bible. There were all of these similarities. There were all of these amazing similarities. And as we kept talking, and even the atheist, what I loved about it was the atheist, everyone was respectful. Nobody made judgment. Nobody made assumptions. It was just about listening. And at the end of the conversation, we all said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could take this conversation and if we could gather a larger group of people together who often fight over religion. And in the news, all we're hearing about are the extremes, the really super duper extremes, but most of the people aren't like that at all. And maybe we could finally build peace between. Because after all, that's what it's all about. It's about loving each other and respecting each other and honoring each other. That conversation is probably one of the top 3 experiences of my lifetime. And I carry it with me and refer to it a lot when people say, well, you know that those Muslims they're all terrorists. And I'll say, but do you know anyone who's Muslim? I've got friends who are Muslim. And if you actually read the text, it talks about loving each other and honoring each other and serving each other, just like the Bible talks about that. And sometimes I'll mention some really extreme group I've heard in another religion and say, well, did you hear about that? And then there's billions of us who are just regular everyday people, loving each other and respecting each other and doing whatever you're going to call up above